But again, it's their story. They get to tell it the way they want to.
That's true.
And it's what you and I've told before, Jim. You know, everybody can tell their own stories, but people ought to not tell things they can't justify or can't prove.
Right.
Because sooner or later, you get caught up in your stories.
Right. You know, with Lou Thesz being a St. Louis native, with Wrestling at the Chase being here, it surprises me that we do not have a museum or something here that celebrates the wrestling. I mean, we were the headquarters of the NWA. Sam Mushnick was the president. It surprises me, and I know me and you have talked about how much memorabilia that you have, and that you should probably open up your own museum. But with all the stuff that you got passed down from Larry, you know, the cards that show you who won and who wrestled at Wrestling at the Chase, and what the time limit was, and how they won the match. I mean, all that stuff. We need you to open up. We need you to throw another hat on. I know you've got so many hats. I mean, you did the ambulance. You had a bar. You had. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I was giving a message.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm listening.
I seen your mouth talking, but I was like, wasn't too sure.
Yeah.
But all the hats that you've had, you know, so you've had a bar, you had a barbecue restaurant, you're the mayor of East Carondelet. We need you to throw one more hat on you and be a caretaker of a museum that you're going to open up. That's
yeah. Well, and again, and I appreciate the accolades there, but I want to just show you right here, and it kind of brings up a point that you're bringing up there. When I said that, you know, people have to be careful of stories that they tell, and because sometimes you get caught up in them. I don't know if you guys can see these. Can you see these cards there? Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of, but back in the day, that's what they would do. They would take these, they're like 3x5 index cards, and they would tape, like on this one here, they would type. This was a guy named Joe Palday, P-A-L-A-R-D-Y, August 27th of 1976. Him and Akiya Sato in a loss to Goliath, and Black Gordman lost the third fall to Goliath. On October 8th, 1976, he lost to Skip Young. January 1st of 1977 with Bob Brown in a win over Akiya Sato and Buck Sumhoff. We all know who Buck Sumhoff is, right? Rock and roll. No. Yeah, rock and roll Buck Sumhoff.
Oh, okay.
He was with the AWA. He's in prison right now.
Oh.
Things didn't really work out for him.
No, and it wasn't a good thing. On January 21st, 1977, with Percy Pringle. We all know who Percy Pringle was, right?
Yeah.
Lost to Akiya Sato and Ronnie Etchison. April 28th, 1978, him and Alexis Smirnoff in a loss over Art Thomas and Kevin Sullivan. Lost the third fall to Thomas. So everybody who wrestled at Wrestling at the Chase or at the Kiel Auditorium or on TV, I've got all the results of them. So
was there like a card for each wrestler? It sounds like
wrestler, each wrestler. So if you want to know how many matches Dick the Bruiser had, I can tell you every match he had, who he fought, he lost. And then on some of them, they would even on the TV shows, they typed on the back of them the colored jackets that Larry and Mickey Garagiola wore for the program, or some of them when Joe Garagiola was the play-by-play announcer. It's a lot of historical information that, you know, unless you're interested in it, it may not mean nothing to anybody. You know, that's what
is it that legendary information that wasn't allowed to leave the office?
Yep. You could look at it, but you didn't take it anywhere. Let's see who else I've got right here, maybe that would be interesting to you guys.
Well,
Michael,
it's all interesting because
you guys aren't wrestling fans, are you?
A little bit. I say you've posted a few things over the years now where, I'll sit there for a while just looking it up and down, reading it 4 or 5 times.
So you guys remember Lord Alfred Hayes?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So January 25th, 1980, with Bob Brown, lost to Art Thomas and David Von Erich, pinned by David, eliminated in the Wrestle Royal. February 22nd, 1980, he lost to David Von Erich. And April 11th of 1980, he lost to Rocky Johnson. May 16th, 1980, with Taki Hachi, I don't remember who that was, lost to Bruiser and Rocky Johnson. He was pinned by Johnson. And in June 13th of 1980, he lost to Bob Backlund.
Wow.
And then they got paper clips on them.
Did you just say Bruiser and Rocky Johnson were teaming?
Yes.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. In 1980, Lord Alfred Hayes with Takiacho lost to the Bruiser and Rocky Johnson, pinned by Johnson. But that'd
be a cool team to see.
So this is Lord Alfred Hayes' history of wrestling in St. Louis, and there's like 6 or 7 cards, front and back. In March 7th of 1975, him and Bill Miller, Murdoch in a loss to O'Connor, Bruiser, and Carpentier, Edward Carpentier.
Right.
And it's lost the second fall to Pat O'Connor. In March of 75, beat Ted Oates. And then with April of 75 was Stan Stasiak, lost to Pat O'Connor and Dory Funk. Traded the first 2 falls with O'Connor. So, like I said, I kid my wife all the time, and I tell her, I said, when I decide to leave, or when it's decided that I leave this world, she'll have a big bonfire,
Oh, hell no.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah. And this
There's 2 guys right there that would make sure that would never happen.
and these are the type of boxes that these things are in. So, you open it up.
That's why I'm saying you need to open up your museum, just because of the stuff that you have. That stuff will get lost. Because my gosh. So like I have it written down here about when wrestling had started. When do you think wrestling was started being filmed? Because they had wrestling from the Margola, they had wrestling
Chicago,
from the St. Louis house.
Yep, yeah, it started at the St. Louis house, but the oldest, and there was a war that went on in St. Louis. Luthez and Sam Muchnick were at war at one time.
Right, the Alliance versus the Association.
Right. So I don't know exactly what year the TV would have started, like the Wrestling at the Chase program first aired on channel, a lot of people don't know this, it started off on Channel 5 out of St. Louis before it went to Channel 11. And it was only on Channel 5 for a short time. But the wrestling out of the Marigold was out of Chicago, and it actually came into Belleville, Illinois, to a little TV station they had there. Is where it first started at. But the oldest program, the programs that they used to make up and sell at the shows, and later on they mailed them out. The oldest one I've got is 1934.
Holy cow.
My collection. And then they just progressed from there. The only body that I know that's got the complete set of the St. Louis wrestling programs other than I is Jim Cornette.
Cornette.
And Cornette's
Didn't I
got
hear you helped him complete his?
Yeah, well, Larry did. Larry traded. He had certain years that Jim didn't have, and Jim had some that Larry had lost or didn't get. So when they traded them, we both now have a complete set. Have you ever seen those books that I've got?
Oh
yeah. Yeah, and they're in hardbound books, and they got the dates on the front of them, like 1959 to 1962 is in this book, and they're all like brand new, but the programs and I get them out periodically because they're just good to sit back and read.
Yeah.
Fritz Von Erich against Gene Kaniski, Johnny Valentine against Fritz Von Erich. And then later on, when Larry started writing the little reviews in there, that's kind of what I really like to read, because Larry had such an knack for writing. And
Right.
I always said the same way with his play-by-play. I always said that you could have a vision impairment and sit in front of the TV and listen to Larry Matysek call a match, and he'd make you feel like you're right there in the ring. And I think you guys would agree with that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, to me, of course, I'm partially probably the best in the business when it comes to making you feel that you were right there.
Right.
Believe me, I've listened to all of them. I've Joe Garagiola was another one. I mean, if you look at the tapes that Larry and I reproduced in 1962, when Joe was he was the first play-by-play announcer that started in 1959. He was more of he called the brain buster that Johnny Valentine did. He'd call it the arm and hammer. Yeah, so he always come up with some quirky stuff, but he was good, but he didn't know nothing about wrestling. It was like Mickey
Right.
Garagiola. Mickey Garagiola was working at the restaurant when Sam Muchnick come in there one day and said, "Hey, what are you doing this afternoon when you get off?" He said, "No, I don't get off." Wait. He said, "Well, yeah, you do." He said, "I need you to come down and be a ring announcer." He said, "I don't know nothing about wrestling." He said, "And plus, I work on the weekends." He said, "Hey, didn't your brother Joe tell you we tape them?" So, and then Mickey ended up being the ring announcer for many years. So, and that, that was, when we talk about highlights, when Mickey passed away, Larry and I went to the funeral, and there I am sitting next to Joe Garagiola and Yogi Berra.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Y'all know who Yogi Berra is, I hope.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. St. Louis catcher.
Because they all grew up on the hill together, and so I sit there and listen to how Joe and Yogi talked about him and Mickey and all of them used to play cork ball out in the street, and and of course Joe went on to be the guest host of the St. Louis. I mean the
Today Show, wasn't it?
Today Show, yeah. So, but that was and not that it was a highlight that Mickey passed away, but just to be sitting there at the funeral next to Joe and to Yogi Berra. I mean, another time man, if I had a lollipop, I'd have been. I'd been like a kid at a candy shop,
Right. It's just amazing to me how much St. Louis had an impact on wrestling, and even Belleville had an impact on wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, to have a center that had Bruiser Brody in there and had Lou Thez in there, and the funny thing is no one really knows it. You can talk to anyone nowadays, and no one would ever know Lou Thez had been in that building.
No,
and it's a shame.
Yeah, my Chairman Kern, the county chairman, and I just talked last week about that same thing with the county now owning the fairgrounds building. He told me, he said, we ought to hang some of that memorabilia up in there, because he said, you've told me all the guys that's been there, and he said, why not have a little display in there of it, and
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I was going to throw at you. Because I was going to ask you, how they have that little building in front of the fairgrounds that used to be a tool rental place?
Yeah.
Is that part of the county?
Yes. Yeah.
That would make a nice memorial. I mean, a museum or something. Get everyone, looking at the wrestling, and then bam, going right back down to the fairgrounds and actually see the wrestling show, or even like Mark said, have it inside the building.
Yeah, because when you stop and think that fairgrounds, that was there's a lot of history with just that fairgrounds alone, and
Right.
the county ended up purchasing it, and then the racetrack, they hope to get it back opened up, and like I said, the wrestling was always a big, we wrestled out on that racetrack. I mean, I had Bruiser Brody against Killer Tim Brooks on that racetrack. So Bob Orton wrestled on the racetrack against Greg Valentine.
In a steel cage.
Yes.
I was there.
And the cage had to be set like this on that bank track. They had to try to get it elevated as much as possible. guy we called at that time another promoter named Colonel Sanders that wanted me to work with him. We called him Colonel Sanders, but he's since passed away. But that was the night that Bob forgot he was supposed to be at the show.
Right.
So, but things happen. It's wrestling.
Yeah.
So
But,
in the
yeah.
future, can we expect more wrestling out on the racetrack when they get it going? Because it's pretty in bad shape right now. But
Yeah, I think you'll see some movement on that in the future here. Yeah, and I think you'll see a lot of more entertainment, just races there. There's a lot of intense talk going on right now about what needs to be done there. There's 22 acres there. That's and the thing is that fairgrounds is being used every weekend now, and it's a
It's a hotbed.
well, I got you two on here. Put on your dates, June 3rd. We had the police officer get shot from Dupo, Illinois, and we've been asked to help put a fundraiser together, like we did for the fire chief. So that will be on June 3rd, right there, and we'll be in the big hall at the fairgrounds.
That'll be good.
Yeah, so I figured that everybody would chip in and help out with that because the fire chief, we helped him out, and this police officer is very, very lucky. In fact, his brother-in-law works on the East Carondelet Police Department.
Well, that's one of the great things about SICW is the fundraisers that we do. I mean, Bobby's living proof of the fundraiser that helps his students. We talk about, the Little Devils all the time. But, like you said, for the police, for the fire chief, for the kids up, to deal with Bill Hinson. Fairmont City, Granite's,
Millstadt, and that's, we're not out beating the doors down at the local, and I love the American Legions and the VFWs, but, I've never done that. Our repeat businesses, I think, speaks for itself. When you're going back in these same locations 8, 9, 10, 12 years in a row, the Swansea Fire Department, we raised them over $4,000 in 8 years for their fire department there.
Right.
So and I think if we're not doing something right, they wouldn't be asking us to come back. And
True.
So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of that because, like I said, you guys go out there and you show up and you show out, and that's what it's all about. And I think, Nate, you got to witness that last month. I think you could feel the electricity that those fans bring, and I was glad you was there to make it.
Yeah,
I'm glad I was there too. I'll be there on the 11th too.
I can vouch on the other side of, from the Little Devil side. That I won't throw any numbers out, but we do always profit because SICW brings it. And then even more than that, how many months ago was that? And I still have kids and adults coming up to me talking about that show. And not just me. Like, they're talking about Big Texan and Prater and Gary Jackson. And it definitely entertains and memorable and draws them.
After that show, they're probably talking about your son.
Yeah, that was a hot topic for a long time.
Well, I just know from the fan interviews that I did on the ones I can't use because I forgot to turn the mic on, that there were a lot of fans that never went to an SICW show until they saw the Little Devil show.
Good.
So
I can tell you, Herb, Jen, she's one of the ones been getting like about 15, 20 tickets for the past few shows. Her first show was at the Little Devils, and she's just been hooked since.
Yeah, because I saw the interviews you did out there, and they said, man, wherever Bobby's at, we're going. And that's what's good. Guys interact with the fans because, you've heard me say it before. The business is like making a cake. If you don't have all the ingredients, it's not going to be a good cake, and it's not going to be a good product. And when you've got a good location, you got a good locker room, and then without the fans, you don't have anything. So, and that's why I think we're all so passionate about making sure the fans leave there happy. And I try to stand at the door at night when they're leaving and thank them and get their opinion. And it's amazing how they'll say, some of them will go, "Boy, Herb, just when we thought we had it figured out, you pull a rabbit out of the hat," and that's when and then they watch the show on Sunday nights, and then all week long I'm getting messages, "Hey, what about this? Why don't you put so and so against this?" And that tells me that they're really buying into what you're putting together. It's
Right.
just that we just don't show up and, okay, A goes against B. Go out there and do what you can. There's there's a reason and a rhyme to why we have matches against one another that makes sense. It's called old school wrestling, and again, I'm not bashing anybody. Everybody does their own thing, but as long as I'm at the head of the ship, the captain there, I'm going to do old school because I think that's what there's still a large, and I base that on what I hear about the stuff out there now, even on the bigger scale, the WWE, the AEWs, and them. Nothing against that, but everybody says, it's like fish out of the water. Everybody gets their high spots in, and so what? If you've seen one swanton and one this or one that, you see it 10 times throughout a match. What we tell is a story that's got meaning to it, and wants people to come back and see the outcome.
And Jim and I have talked about that a lot, where the storyline needs to be put out even more. Because that's not what they're doing anymore. It's old school, not what they're doing. And doing old school 80s version coming up. And I say they stole it from Jim.
Yeah.
Jim was talking in one of our podcasts on how it needs to come back. And all of a sudden it pops up.
The
Well, and
thing
that's
is, go ahead.
I did an interview, and I'm trying to think who it was with. It was a podcast, and I told him, I said, "Look, I'm going to say this, and if it happens, then I'm going to tell Vince he owes me, because if I had the library that Vince McMahon has got, it's kind of like what we do on our local show. We add the old with the new. So you stop and think of the library that Vince McMahon has got. If he would take and mix some of that in on a Monday Night Raw or a Tuesday night, whatever it is, or a Wednesday, he's got an unlimited amount of it. He would draw the demographics, the old and the new, watching that. All of a sudden here today, you're seeing these two up and coming stars, but then cut away with some of the talk and some of the commercial spots, because he's got all the money in the world anyway. But then you throw in that Bob Orton and Roddy Piper against somebody and somebody, or Mr. Fuji when he was out there managing some of the greats. All of a sudden, you start getting that attention of that older crowd. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
And so I said, you watch and see if I know he's got that 24/7, but everybody told me that was hard to get and the service was bad. But with Monday Night Raw, there would definitely be a promoter's corner, So
I tell you, I've been, and I've told everyone this, the students at the Ace Academy, I tell them all the time, because me and Bob Orton will actually be sitting down, and there's a Q and answer we do with the students. What would you like to learn? Is there a certain move that you would like to, and they'll call something out, and I'm thinking, what is that move that you're talking about? Yeah. And then I would call it something else. And then Bob would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because the names of these moves just keep getting changed and weirded out. I tell them all the time, I said, what you need to do is need to watch some old black and white 60s, 70s wrestling. I mean, the stuff was so crisp. I tell the students all the time, they're running 90 miles an hour in that ring. And they're getting blown up. And, they're sucking wind so bad, hinched over. I was like, you guys need to scale that back. watch some old wrestling, watch how if you do it slow and methodical, everything means something more. Where if you're running around 90 miles an hour trying to get some sort of hurricanrana done, that doesn't mean nothing, especially when that opponent gets right back up.
Yeah.
It's horrible. We had a new student last night, and he watched wrestling growing up, kind of got away from it, and then he asked me, we were teaching him how to protect himself, and not even teaching him any kind of move set or anything. You mainly want to protect yourself at the beginning. But I told him, I said, don't watch anything new. Watch the older stuff. It's a lot crisp. You can see how these transfer into one hold, getting into the other hold, and the reason why. And you can see the story unfolding in front of you, where, you got nowadays, the little thigh slap super kick where they do 20 of them in one match. If you do 20 of the same move in one match, does that say that your kick sucks? Because to me, that would mean that you can't kick for nothing if you have to do it 20 times.
Yeah. Remember when a super kick was your finisher?
Right. Yeah.
And now you see it 20 times in a match from the same guy, and he's got a weak boot or a weak. And I tell people all the time, and I'll ask you guys, what has changed in the business over the years that you can remember? What's changed?
I'm going to answer that because I got a question for you. But
I was going to ask that question of you too, Herb. But for me, it's until I went and witnessed SICW, it was the fan interaction changed, where it was no longer fan centric. It was wrestler centric and money centric. And I think that night, the first thing I talked to you about was the fan interaction. I was glad to see it with the wrestlers and the fans and everybody.
But and I understand that, and I agree with that. But I'm talking about back in 1900, because wrestling's been around a long, long time.
Oldest sport.
A headlock was a headlock. I don't care how you spell it. The spelling hasn't changed. An arm drag has been an arm drag. The sleeper hold has been the sleeper hold, even though it's been put on a different way. The figure four has been put on different ways, but it's still the figure four. What has changed in the business is ego. And I've said that time and time again. This younger superstar ambitions that these guys have got, and it's okay. They can follow that dream, but wrestling hasn't changed. It's still the same. It's just that guys have not learned how to check their ego at the door. They all want to come in. They all got to do this. They all got to do that. They don't want to listen to what the program is, but then you step in to a locker room like SICW, and I'm going to brag a little bit about that because those guys have realized, and I think I heard Jim say a couple of weeks ago on your show that when he started, he thought that he had to go out and wrestle for every swinging promotion that he could get to. Right. But now he's reached a point in his career that it's more about quality over quantity. And again, if you are good enough and if you are wrestling 25 or 50 miles down the road, guess what? The true fans are going to come and see you there. But what you're going to get 25 to 50 miles down the road is a whole new audience of people. Or if you wrestle in Belleville tonight and then next week you're in Springfield, Illinois, like we used to do at the Lanphier High School, or we were at the Centralia Community Center, I could run the same show 4 or 5 nights a week and never see the same fan. I could put Bobby D against the Texan, and I could start off in the southern Missouri and come all the way up to Rolla, Missouri, come all the way into Illinois, go to mid states in the middle of Illinois, go up to Waseca, Illinois, and run that same match night after night.
And that'd be a great match too.
It would have been. It's been a great match. But the thing
It's been a
is,
few years.
you can't do that when you're here today and 10 blocks down the road, you're doing the same match. Or in this block of match, you're the big heel, and down the road, you're the big baby.
Yeah.
Fans
Right.
are not stupid. Believe me, there are fans out there who snap on that and say, wait a minute, they're trying to attack my intelligence. I said, yeah, they think you're a mark, and which is a terrible word. When I hear people mention towards fans aren't marks. Fans come and they spend their hard-earned money to watch, to be entertained. And that's why at SICW, we're going to give them the best that we can because of the caliber of one, we know how to do it, and we got the guys and gals that can do it. Gals, we're kind of lack on them now, but hopefully we'll get a few here down the
Yeah,
road.
I'm going to throw out the Hendricks family. The
That's
Hendricks
exactly what I
family
was thinking about.
drives 4 or 5 hours to come
Yes.
and watch an SICW show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's proof in the pudding right there that the quality of the show is where they're coming.
I'm gonna
I
throw
did.
out that Nate had a great interview with her, though it didn't have a microphone.
Oh no, they got a little bit. Nate got a little bit of her on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, during intermission when the microphone was on.
But we had a couple at the show last month that's already called and ordered. There was 2 of them to come. They called now and ordered 17 seats for the March the 11th.
Nice.
So what does that tell you? That tells you that they were happy,
Right.
and again, everybody that's in the business does it, and they all want to say they're the best, they're the greatest, and they should. It's their business. It's whatever they're doing. But the bottom line is when you go home at night and you're counting up the money, and when you're saying, wait a minute, I didn't pay the boys. There's this big thing, and Jim, you and I talked about it today, the old saying, the hot dog and the handshake. That's been really back out this last couple of weeks, have been being put out there. I'll give anybody $1,000 that works for Herb Simmons for the last 50 years that comes to me and says they work for a hot dog and a handshake and can prove it.
I say I've gotten a hot dog and a handshake. Well, not even the hot dog, but never from you.
Well, yeah. And it's the same way when I hear guys talk about, man, I sold hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise at this show. Now, look, I wasn't good at math in school, but I can assure you, I can look at a crowd, an audience, and I can tell you how many people's in it and be real close to what the gate says it is. And I can tell when people are standing in line buying merchandise. I even went as far here as about a year ago, and when people tell me, "Oh, I'm making a living at wrestling," bring me your tax forms, and I'll pay your taxes on what your profit was you made on wrestling. And you know what? Nobody called me. Nobody called my phone. Nobody brought me their taxes because they're full of BS. You don't have to BS. The fans don't care about that. Take that energy that you're trying to impress them with and go out there and do it in the ring.
Right.
All this talk, about, oh, I make all this money and I do all this and I do all that. Go out there and talk. I mean, go out there, get in the ring and show them what you can do. That's where your real wealth is at right there. Because you know what you're going to do? You're going to make them fans come back, like this person that just ordered 17 seats for August the 11th. They liked what they saw. So now, payday's there. They're going to come back. Maybe next time they'll bring more people. And that's what you do. You got to build the audience up. But it doesn't impress me when guys tell me I sold $200 worth of merchandise. They don't tell you what it costs to have that merchandise made up.
I was going to say there's a lot of overhead to get the merch
I was going
made.
to say, Bobby, you got your own line of it now, and you just didn't call up the supply store and say, send me $500 worth of this and that, and I'll pay you when I sell it. It doesn't work that way. If it does, let me know, and I'll order some. But again, if that's what makes them happy, if that's what makes them lay down at night and put their head down and say, oh, I BS somebody and they believe me, fans are not stupid. I'm telling you. And I'm not stupid. Don't try to work me because, there used to be an old saying, you can't work a worker. Well, other than that, you can't work a promoter. You know, it just
Especially
doesn't.
when not
Been
one
around
in
so
his
long.
gold anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a great thing, or we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it tonight. And you guys can see, I can sit here and talk all night, and I know you guys have before.
Yep.
And again, it's because we love the business, but our business is, I don't want to say slowly, it's quickly dwindling as far as quality. I mean, just look at some of it. You know, you guys see clips out there. I
Hmm.
mean, you know, we got guys out there making fun of the business. That turns my stomach. Then you
Yeah.
see guys out there making stupid mistakes, trying stupid moves that, you know, is going to kill somebody or get
I
somebody seriously hurt.
I seen one today. It was two girls. The wrestling ring, and then there was a balcony, and they were both at the balcony, and this one was forearming the other girl in the back, and she fell, and she hit the side of the ring.
Yeah.
It horrible. I mean,
And so for what? What did you get? You may have got a 5 second pop, 10 second pop, and now you're hurt. You're out of work. You can't do your day job. You can't pay your bills. You know,
right?
if you allow that feeling, that adrenaline to overtake you, you need to go do something else because it will end up costing you your livelihood. Yeah, yeah, and again, you know, these guys and gals who want to go out there and follow their dream and become wrestlers, I applaud them, but they need to start with the basics. They need to learn how to be safe. You talk to any legend, and they'll tell you the first rule of anything is taking care of yourself and taking care of your partner.
Yep.
And you can talk that crap all you want, but when you go out there and you try something silly, you know, I listened to a clip today. In fact, it was Harley Race. I don't know if you saw it, but he's on there talking about what it was like when him and Nick Bockwinkel was over in Japan and they got paired up against Brody and Stan Hansen.
Mm.
Now, Brody was tough, one of the toughest out there. Stan Hansen, even just as tough. But you know what? Harley Race was probably, I might even say, maybe just a little bit tougher. Uh, and if you look that clip up, and he'll tell you how both, and I'm not, Brody's my guy. I mean, but I'm telling you, when you listen to Harley tell this story about how they were trying to overpower him, and Nick was as green as grass back then, as we said, and they had him in tag matches like 3, 4 nights in a row, and they'd always, you know, okay, tonight you start, tonight I will. And Harley started off for the first couple nights, and then Nick was feeling his oats and says, "Yeah, I'm going to start off tonight." And Harley says, "No, you better let me." And Nick, "Oh no, I got this." And Harley says, he says, "Well, they ate him alive like you know, like a." And he got over and made the tag, and he said, and we got in there, and he said, I tried telling him, now look, guys, we're either gonna calm this down a little bit, or it's time we go to school. And Brody tried to put that boot up there, and he said I kind of sidestepped him and grabbed that leg and took him down. And he said at one time Hansen got in there and he went to try to suplex me, and he said I backed him up against the rope, and he said the referee kind of moved in like he was going to break us, and so Stan kind of relaxed, and he said when he did, I just hooked him, and he said I suplexed him. He said, and that's saying a lot about it. That's the respect that these guys have. But
Yep.
as you just said earlier, Jim, these guys get out there nowadays and they're going 110 miles an hour to do what? You know,
Right?
slow down, take a break,
I tell
listen.
them, I said, there's no reason to use a rope or a corner. Wrestling is wrestling. Do it in the
Yep.
middle of the ring. You know, and I was showing the new guy last night. You know, I was showing him how to get out of, how to tie up, how to do an arm wringer into a hammerlock, into a headlock, how to reverse out of a headlock. I said, you literally do not have to let go of your partner. You can do it in like a a 4 foot square, 4 by 4 foot square, and literally have a match. And I told him, you can, if you learn how to have a match like that, you can go anywhere. Because if you go into a locker room and say, I know how to chain wrestle, everyone knows that they're going to have a good match with you. Whether you tell them, well, I want to do this spot, I want to do that, I want to jump off of this corner over here. It's just crazy to me. And then you got to worry about if that guy can literally do what he says he's capable of doing. And then the only way to find out is in the middle of the ring. So either one, he's going to do it, or one, he's going to get hurt, or you're going to get hurt. Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy.
Well,
I always wonder how many guys can still do it. Jim, you probably remember. Herb, you were probably there too. At South Broadway, it was Big Tony Senior. The rope broke, the top rope broke, like second or third match into the night, and you weren't allowed to touch the ropes the rest of the night.
No,
because it was just barely on.
Yeah, exactly.
How many people in these locker rooms do you think can do that?
None, other than guys that are in the SICW locker room, because if you go out there, they don't have to use them until they mean something. I tell guys all the time, if you want to watch a good match, watch Pat O'Connor and Buddy Rogers, Kaminsky Park. I mean, back then, you didn't have to have the tight ropes because they weren't jumping off and doing all these fancy moves and everything. If they did back up off the rope or get tossed off the rope, the rope actually bent way out, But they can go in there and chain wrestle, and it's entertaining. But now, and I guess it's because, we don't get the pop from the crowd. Well, your best tool that you have to tell you if you're doing things right or wrong is that crowd sitting out there. They're going to let you know if they like what they're seeing.
Right.
But if you got your ears turned off, you don't know what they're doing. I hate it when I watch some of them videos and, the crowd sitting on their hands, or you're hearing boring, mm-hmm. And the guys, that's your cue. Take that cue and do something with it. Of course, if you go out there with the right attitude, you should never. We never hear that. When's the last time you heard of them saying that at an SICW show?
Right. Never.
From the opening bout. I mean, I'm so proud of the matches, and I'm talking about even some of the younger guys that come on and we bring in. We team them up, or we pit them against a veteran, the ring general as we call them, and they can make chicken salad out of chicken crap. That's when you're good. That's when you know how to do it.
Yeah.
When you got a guy that can go out there and take somebody, and I'll use this Sheik Prater's relation. You can tell he's got some experience. I don't have a problem with putting him in a match out there with somebody who is a veteran, because he's going to take care of him. He's going to make sure he knows he's safe. And but again, it's just a matter of knowing the business. And some of these guys that's working in some of these promotions, they're not worried about that. And then when something happens, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
All right. I want to switch back because you're just like me, Herb. We can go off in one direction, then go off in another direction, and keep going off in different directions. But that would make a 6-hour podcast.
Yeah.
So we need to tie back.
We're good.
So 50 years in the business. What are some of the highlighted places that you've gone? Because I know I've got mine. And I know Bobby's got his, but 50 years. What are your favorite places to have been?
I think the number one place that I talk about all the time is Fox Theater in St. Louis, Missouri. That is by far, and I think not only because the historical Fox Theater, where all the who's who in entertainment business. I'm talking about, the Three Stooges performed at the Fox Theater. Marilyn Monroe performed there.
Wow.
Red Skeleton. The list goes on and on and on. And then here, all of a sudden, in about 1987, I think it was 86. As I get older, my dates sometimes escape me. But all of a sudden, in that time period, late 80s, SICW Wrestling with Sam Muchnick and Larry Matisek and Bruiser Brody, along with Crusher Blackwell, Kamala the Ugandan Giant, Gentleman Chris Adams, the Fantastics, the Midgets, and then the Ron Powers of the world, the Giant Assassins, the Spike Ubers. And you're on the stage at the beautiful historical Fox Theater. And then you have, prior to the show, the Boy Scout troops that come in. And Bruiser Brody gets down off of the stage and goes out there, and them kids are sitting up like this, looking at the Giant. And he's talking calm, and he's giving them the speech, because I talked earlier about a business opportunity that we were going to do. He'd already bought the ring. He already had the property. He was going to have you ever seen the movie Boys Town with Spencer Tracy? Father Flanagan. It's called Boys Town. Yeah, you got to look it up. Great movie. But it's about Spencer Tracy. They called him Father Flanagan, and I was called that for many, many years. And you'll see if you watch the movie, you'll see why. But opens up this home and takes care of orphans, is what it is. And I used to take in a bunch of orphans to work on the ambulance company back in the day, and so that's where I developed that name at. But and then he was going to be in the become a sports agent, because he made a lot of good friends in the baseball, football, basketball business. Mm-hmm. Now, wouldn't you like to know that you were one of those NBA stars or NFL stars out there, and you got Bruiser Brody negotiating for you?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Nobody got out and negotiate him. He proved that in the wrestling business. He negotiated with the best of them. Ask Vince McMahon. Vince wanted him forever. And but here we are. He's talking to these kids, but then we put on a spectacular show at the Fox Theater. So I've always said that's probably was a highlight. But then move on. The MAC show that we did. Great. Yeah. Closest thing to the historical Chase Park Plaza, which we'll be going back to in October. Or I'm not going back to, but we will be going. I've been there, but we'll be having the first SICW show in the Coruscant room at the Chase Park Plaza in October.
Yes, that's great. The MAC, when you bring up the MAC, that is one of my highlights.
Yeah. So, but
the atmosphere there was just crazy.
Yeah, the Fairmont City, Fairmont Park Racetrack. We did numerous shows there. Bruiser Brody against Ox Baker, Bruiser Brody against Nard the Barbarian. We had Gypsy Joe on that, Tojo Yamamoto, Frank Morrell, The Angel, Iceman King Parsons. So that was another place that they never had wrestling before. So, the St. Louis History Museum, the night you beat the shit out of, beat the crap out of Sean Vincent.
Sean Vincent?
Yeah. So, there's those type of venues that I'll wait all night for somebody to tell me of any other promotion around here that's done those type of shows. And,
the History Museum, that was the first ever they ever had wrestling there.
First ever.
Yeah.
First step, being over at PBS Channel 9, even though it wasn't a show, to watch that documentary on the outside of that big screen wall, having the ring set up there. And of course, Bobby D stole the show at the end of the night, with his big pose up on the ring,
Yeah.
and he wasn't even there. So, but so those type of things, and then of course down through southern Missouri, where we ran down there. But when you talk about, and not always is the venue. I ran some of my best shows were in high school gymnasiums, Dupo High School. Main event, Bruiser Brody against Abdullah the Butcher in front of 2,200 fans, crammed only in the bleachers. They wouldn't let us put seats on the floor because they had just that year redone their basketball court. And I got video of that. If you go on, I think it's on volume 2 of our St. Louis Wrestling Classics, they are jammed in there like sardines. But that was on a Sunday afternoon. So a lot of shows we used to run in Centralia, Illinois. At first, we started at the community center there, and then we went to the high school. That night at the high school, we did the Bruiser Brody Memorial after his death. We moved to the high school, and we had an all-star card on that one. That was when Barbara Goodish first come in for me. So it wasn't always those big. They're nice, but Collinsville High School, and then I helped the WWF book road shows. I told you the story before about how Illinois was the toughest athletic commission in the country at one time, and now they don't even have one.
Right.
When I first started, I had to have a doctor at ringside. And lucky me, I had the ambulance company. And so I knew a lot of the doctors. And one of the first doctors I had there was a nun doctor, Dr. Gallinati, who happened to be my personal family physician. She hated wrestling. But because we knew her, and I said, Doc, I got to have you. And so she would show up. But we gradually got her into being a fan. Not 100%, but she enjoyed it a little bit more each time she came. But then I would do Vince's license for him when he would run in Springfield at the Prairie Farm State Building, or when he would run in Peoria. And I charged him $500 a permit fee because we had to have the permit, had to have insurance. I tell people if I'd have known what I knew back then, I'd have added another zero or two on it, that fee, But
Right.
But we would run up to Waseca, Illinois. We'd run far south down to Fairfield, Illinois, El Dorado, Carmi, Illinois. So at one time, and that's when Tony Costa and I was doing a lot of the shows together, and you've heard me say before, I had back then one of the cars was a 1977 Lincoln Continental, and we'd put the wives in the back seat, and we just go. The most we would do sometimes was 4 or 5 nights of shows a week, because some of the schools that we were running in them locations would let us use the gymnasium on a weeknight. Because usually they'd have basketball on Friday nights or on Saturdays. So we might run a Tuesday night at this school, and then we'd go to the next town, and and then we would go back. It wasn't like we run into town and then run out and never see us again, like we do now. It's repeat business. The promotions that run in the middle of the night and do a show and get a payday, and you never hear from them again.